What's up, guys? Forgot I was muted there for a second. How's it going? How you guys doing? Excited to talk about the NFL draft from this past weekend. And then, as you may notice from our title of the YouTube video, we titled it, Is the Transfer Portal Ruining College Football? And obviously, NIL kind of gets lumped into this as well. But that's the question, right? Is the transfer portal / NIL ruining college football? And the answer is probably no. But it's not in a good situation right now. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Excited to do that. Johnny, what's going on?
Hey.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. I'm trying to... I can't figure out if I need to turn myself up or not. I think I'm good. On stream, I should say. That's probably a helpful caveat. I think we're good. Let me... hang on.
So I was just finishing up the last of the draft grades. With
No, you're
notes.
good. That's perfect. What did I just do? There we go. Let's do that. All right. And then we're going to take me. Sorry, chat. 1 second. There, how's that? Good. All right, cool. Yeah, I had to fix the overlay a little bit since Josh isn't on. I'm not using the normal one.
Sure.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I just, for your purposes, I just thought if you want to talk about the 2 best grades that you're giving out and then the 2 worst.
Yeah.
I feel like, and if there's other ones you want to talk about, that's fine. But I think for my purposes.
Oh yeah, I don't need to say a million things about every single last team. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are pretty, like you have the Rams who like barely picked anything, and
Right.
There's plenty of teams that just didn't have enough picks, which is always kind of the goal anyway, right? Like you don't want to. Winning the draft is not like the formula there.
Right.
Like, yeah.
I mean, yeah. How many teams win the draft and then go, 6-10, right? I mean,
Right.
most of them.
I mean, most of the time when you win the draft, it's because you really need to win the draft because you're bad.
Yeah.
So, it's not. It's a winning amongst losing type of a thing. Correct. So, it's not the goal here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. I'm actually not. I'm like ordering them real quick right now, so I'm not like looking at nothing. Yeah, we are live. You are looking live. Or like the Broncos and Dolphins, they like traded away all of their. So I tried to not let the trades affect draft grades, even though that kind of does.
Hang on. By the way, if you are here watching the replay or watching the live stream here on YouTube, I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. It means a lot. This is and if this is your first time here, then welcome to behind the scenes of us getting ready for a show before it starts. This is what happens. We get all our thoughts in a row and away we go. All right, let me tweet out.
I was generous in these grades. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, no, I actually don't think I agree with that you had that good of a draft. Oh my. No, it's totally fine. Totally fine.
All right, there's a tweet. There we go. Happy Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yes.
For those who celebrate, I think I celebrate. I'm to the point where I'm like, all right, dang, I need to. What happened this regular season? Because I will be the first to admit that I did not spend a ton of time watching hockey. But
Well, it doesn't help when your team's not very good.
yeah, it doesn't help, and it also doesn't help when this is one of the busiest years of sports we've had, considering two Olympics, a Euro Cup, about to have a World Cup before too long, and yeah, the NBA going on right now. So usually I feel like I watch more NHL because it's usually before the NBA playoffs start, but because of the Olympic break and the COVID break they took, they're just now starting. So, yeah. Wow, interesting. I'm excited to hear your reasoning behind that.
Between both of them?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree, but I'm curious.
Yeah. It was a tight race for the bottom.
Yeah.
It was a tight race at the top, honestly. There were a lot of teams that there were like 7 teams that well, actually I'll say 8. I think like 8 teams knocked it out of the park. Like I think 8 teams did a great job.
Yeah.
Then I think the rest of them for the most part are like, okay. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
It's hard to say like you got worse. You didn't. You got better.
Yeah.
But then like honestly, like at the bottom, I'm just like, the 5 of you, what are you doing? Like there's like 5 of them that I'm like,
Yeah.
You don't have a clue. You literally have 0 clue what's going on.
You had a big board of names and you just started throwing darts, and wherever it landed
Yes.
is where you threw. Yeah.
You didn't pay attention to your needs at all. And I'm like, okay, well, I get like not always drafting for need, but sometimes you need to draft for need. Like sometimes a need is a need and you need to draft for it. Yeah. So that is the indictment really with most of those teams.
Yeah.
But I am good.
All right, cool. I will start my recording. I think I'm good.
Recording has been started.
Nice.
And we are good. We are all good.
Cool. Let's do it. Oh, I should turn up my music. I was like, something's all right. All right, cool. Welcome to the 5th and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron, and Josh, unfortunately, is buried in the books. So he's not able to make it. He's going through finals. We're thinking of him. But Jonny is here. Jonny, what's up?
Oh, just recovering from the NFL draft, one of the best 3-day periods of the entire year. Every team got better.
Yes. That's the positive way of looking at it. We'll take the negative route here a little later. We do have draft grades coming at you, but there's a bunch of stuff we want to talk about. The NFL draft is one of them. We may touch on the NBA because we're in the second round now of games there, and there's a lot going on in the college football landscape. So that's all coming up on today's episode. But yeah, Jonny, my week was good as well. We really enjoyed our draft show that we did on Thursday, and I just want to say there's a lot of people that stopped by, and many of them were guests on our show, but many of them just stopped by our YouTube stream to give their thoughts, and just appreciate all of you that did that. It really means a lot, and if hopefully you guys enjoyed second year in a row of Jonny just completely smoking me in his mock draft. So thanks for humbling me once again. And yeah, you did. I mean, I feel like you did pretty well overall. So
early on, once the trades happen, you're just screwed.
Yeah,
like it's over.
Yeah.
And I believe that it set a record for the most number of trades in the first round. I believe.
Really?
In one night.
I can believe
that's
that.
Correct.
As much as we were scrambling trying to figure out who the heck was picking, I believe that. For sure.
And it didn't help that you had the Saints with multiple picks super close to one another, the Eagles with multiple picks right next to each other. Like you were just lost, scrambling desperately there for a moment, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. So it was super fun, though. I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, I did too. It was a really good night. Thoroughly enjoyed the draft. And so let's talk about it, right? We've got your grades. We'll preview those in just a little bit. But Jonny, let's just start with your Cincinnati Bengals. How did you feel about their draft? Because I know a weird situation. You're not used to them drafting 31st, right? It's been a while since you've had to stay up that late to watch your team make a first round pick.
Yeah. I felt kind of off and on with the Bengals, and this is how you feel. Most of you fans out there feel the same way. Is eventually you start talking yourself into the picks and like, oh man, like what a good job. Like they did a great job in the draft. And I by no means do I feel like the Bengals did a bad job. I believe I gave them I give them a B minus. I give them a B minus because I like the players that they took. It just doesn't fit a team that should be in win now mode. Now, Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan, who they drafted 31st, like we'll probably end up seeing the field. He'll get in the rotation somewhat with Von Bell and Jesse Bates at safety. They're probably really going to throw him down at nickel and help him almost use him as a corner. But then they'd also draft Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska corner there as well. And so, like, while those were needs, drafting a safety in the first round really is saying, one, we're not signing Jesse Bates to a contract extension, which you understand. That's a lot of money, and paying your safety doesn't show that it works. So I understand that. Corner situation. We have 3 guys on 1-year deals, other guys who are getting close to the end of theirs. Drafting a corner does make sense. All of these moves, though, really make sense in a next year sense. And so the secondary really is going to be just fine in a year, even after departures. But the Bengals didn't draft a tight end, and we don't have a pass-catching tight end except for Hurst. And do you really trust him that much? He's been injured several times. Drew Sample is not a pass-catching tight end. And Uzama was critical for Joe Burrow in last year. I agree with not paying him, but that's tough to then not draft a tight end.
Yeah.
I do like the guard that they drafted in the 4th round from North Dakota State. I actually was a huge fan of that pick. Cordell Volson. I think he honestly could compete for the starting right guard spot. Like, I actually love that pick. I thought that was great. Would have I liked a offensive lineman earlier? Sure. Like, that's absolutely correct. There wasn't the right guy though for them in the first 2 picks. So I thought the Bengals did okay overall. How about your Lions though, Aaron?
Yeah, I felt okay about them. Obviously was pretty happy getting Hutchinson with the number 2 pick. Obviously, depending on whose draft board you looked at, he was going number 1 simply because he's the most NFL ready player right now. People are speculating that Trayvon Walker might have a higher ceiling. We'll see if that's true or not, but very happy with that pick. That kind of fell into their laps, made all the sense in the world, both from a need standpoint, the fact that he played for Michigan, all the above. And then the real interesting part came when the Lions traded from 32 all the way up to 12. And they didn't, number one, they did not have to get rid of a ton to do it. I believe they got rid of a 2nd and a 3rd round pick, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe so.
Which, if you look back just to last year, the Chicago Bears moving up to get Justin Fields paid way more. Now, obviously, maybe the price is a little bit more steep when you're making a move like that for a quarterback. But regardless, I felt pretty good. And then we ended up with Jamison Williams, who, yes, he's coming off an ACL, but if not for that, he was going to be the first wide receiver drafted. So in a way, it feels like you got wide receiver 1 all the way back at 12. I was happy that the Lions made that move considering that run on wide receivers we saw. I mean, Jamison Williams was the 3rd wide receiver in a row. It went Wilson, Olave, and then Jamison Williams. So I'm happy about that. Johnny, if you think about it, and I'm not trying to hype myself up too much because they're the Lions and they will fail me. But you've got an offense where imagine a relatively healthy Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown really came on at the end of the draft. You've got TJ Hawkinson at tight end. And then you've got Swift out of the backfield, and a halfway decent offensive line. Like, the offense should be okay next year, in theory. The defense will probably still be atrocious, but let's hope Hutchinson can help fill some gaps, and some of the other guys they picked up. They also grabbed Josh Pascal from Kentucky in the 2nd round. They grabbed a safety out of Illinois. So overall, I was pretty pleased with what the Lions did. It's step 1 in a long process still. I'm not expecting anything more than probably 6 wins from this team. But I think it was the move in the right direction, hopefully. And maybe someday we'll get out of this inevitable rebuild for all of our existence as Lions fans. And I'm coming at that as someone who's only been a Lions fan for like 3 or 4 years. I fully understand that Most Lions fans have suffered far longer than I have, but I think it was good, and I think most Lions fans are saying generally the same things from what I understand.
No, Aaron, I thought they had a great draft. I definitely think top 5 draft overall. I love the move up for Jameson Williams. If that was your wide receiver, go get him. Go get him. I thought that was a great job by the Lions. If you really like a guy, if he's your guy, go get him.
Yeah.
No quarrels with that whatsoever. They're not in my top 2, but that is because I thought the Lions had a solid draft, really good draft. They honestly probably were my 3rd team, but these other 2 teams just knocked it out of the park. That's the only reason they're not there.
And we'll get to that in just a second. Before we do that, the question is, and maybe this partly leads into your best and worst grades, but what were the biggest surprises for you in this draft? Was there anything that really stuck out?
I thought Malik Willis dropping.
Yes.
And part of that is probably us just assuming like, man, a quarterback has to go earlier than that.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett going 20th was, we haven't seen anything like that in a long time with a quarterback. We almost just figured like, yeah, people are going to get desperate. Like they're going to go all in on this. Like they just have to. Like it was almost like our own disbelief that like it would take that long for a quarterback to be drafted for us to accept that. But him going all the way to the 3rd round, like not even him sliding to the 2nd, but dropping all the way to the 3rd round with the Titans, which I think is actually great case scenario for Malik. So, whenever, these guys drop in the draft dramatically, it ends up being a huge benefit to them. They're going to more stable situations. They're going to a place that might not need them immediately, but if they pop, they have a good support system around them. So that was probably one of my big surprises. Another surprise was Jeremy Johnson dropping from Florida State. Fantastic production in college at Florida State without much help on a very bad team. And this is leading into one of my top drafted teams is the Jets coming up and getting him at the bottom of the 1st round. I thought there was a chance Seattle might take him at 9. And so for the Jets to get him where they did, they got him. Let me see where they got him real quick. Like 23. Where'd they take him? They took him at 26. Jeremy Johnson at 26. I thought that was a home run, knock out of the park. The only other surprise was Nakobe Dean dropping as far as he did. And that is because it was not released really until draft night.
Yeah.
A bunch of injuries, a torn pec, an ankle injury, a knee injury as well, I believe. And these are injuries that were not common knowledge to everybody. And so as we kept getting later on, and he's a linebacker, so you thought, well, maybe that's what's going on. For him to go to the 3rd round was a big deal to me. So this is the leader of the Georgia defense in their national title team. And that Georgia defense was just showcased during the draft. But the Eagles picking up Nakobe Dean, even if he won't be ready for much of this year, I think that was a really good pick for them too.
Yeah, I think it could pay big dividends. Again, it's kind of the debate about ceiling versus readiness. There's kind of that battle, and maybe he's not ready for the season, but dang, that ceiling could be awfully high if he's back healthy. I agree with you. The quarterback situation was very surprising. I mean, in some of my early mocks, I had 4 quarterbacks going in the 1st round, and we only had one, and he was picked number 20 to Josh's Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm with you. I thought there would be some teams that were willing to maybe take take a Malik Willis early, say, hey, there's some upside here. Let's just try it. And I think there's a lot of teams that thought the same way that a lot of fans and a lot of experts thought, that this was a relatively weak draft quarterback class. And I don't necessarily disagree, but here the issue might be that you're going to have 10 or 15 teams all ready to draft a quarterback next year. And yes, in theory, it's a better quarterback class, but it's partially because Bryce Young and CJ Stroud lead that quarterback class. Here's kind of a list. I'll just throw some names out there of guys not named CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. And I'm not trying to disparage any of these guys. I'm just saying, I don't think any of these stick out as like, oh yeah, for sure, NFL product. Spencer Rattler, Jake Hayner from Fresno State, which I love, by the way. Jaron Hall, BYU. Anthony Richardson, Florida. You've got Will Levis from Kentucky. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina. Tyler Van Dyke, Miami, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. And this is, I should give credit to this article that's throwing in these names. This is a Pro Football Network list. But I mean, I think there could be a situation where you get to the draft and all these teams that waited on a quarterback are now fighting for CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. And I know there will be more quarterbacks that emerge this season in college football. But I do think there's going to be plenty of teams that get left behind because they didn't pull the trigger this year. And I'm not saying it was correct for them to do so, but there's going to be limited options and more teams that need quarterback than actual quarterbacks available. I think, in my opinion. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, that's always the case, Aaron. Hayner would be the guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he popped.
Agreed.
Next year. And there will be a third quarterback. It will happen.
Yep.
Somebody's going to pop. And again, if you're looking at the teams that I would expect to be bad next year, Seattle's probably going to be really bad. And I think Seattle had a phenomenal draft, so don't get me wrong. I thought they had a great draft. But they're going to be bad. Seattle's going to be really bad. Having a great draft isn't going to prevent you from having a bad season.
Yeah.
Seattle's going to have a rough year. Wouldn't be surprised if they're one of the top 2 or 3 picks. They will need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Other than them, most of the bad teams still might not be in that quarterback realm. Now, I would say Detroit would be in there also. But if we're looking at other teams that I would deem bad, Jacksonville is probably still going to be bad. Washington's probably going to be bad. Where are we looking at here? You know, you're going to have teams like Atlanta and Houston that might be looking for a quarterback too. Like you said, Aaron, there's going to be like 8 teams there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not like one of the top 3 picks, it's going to be a little dicey.
Yep.
It's going to be a little dicey for those teams looking at quarterbacks. You know, you're going to have teams. Daniel Jones is on a prove it year this year. Davis Mills, if he doesn't prove it anything this year with Houston, which I don't think he will because they botched the draft again, like they're going to be looking for a quarterback. Like Washington, I don't know if Carson Wentz is going to work. You know, if Tua doesn't pop this year with Miami, they're looking for a quarterback. Atlanta's certainly looking for a quarterback. I don't think Desmond Ritter's the answer there.
Yeah.
Especially not year 1. We're going to be seeing a lot of teams desperate.
Which will lead to some just idiotic trades, and I can't wait. It'll be so much fun.
Yes.
All right. Jonny, you did a lot of work. You made a bunch of mock drafts, and now that the draft is over, you've given grades to every team. Would you give us your 2 best performing teams in the draft, and as well as your 2 least best performing teams?
Yeah, number 1 team, and this is really easy for me. I thought they killed it night 1, and I thought they continued to follow it up afterwards. And the first is actually, I can't believe I'm saying it, the New York Jets.
Yeah.
The New York Jets knocked it out of the park this year, getting help for Zach Wilson, and also helping out in areas of struggle on the defensive side as well. Ahmad Gardner, I think they had to be thrilled when Derek Stingley went 3. They still got the guy they wanted and who I think is the number 1 corner anyway. They had to be thrilled when the Falcons, who I thought botched the draft as well, takes Drake London at 8. They get Garrett Wilson at 10. Probably their top guy on the board who they didn't think would be there. Had to be thrilled once again. They get Jeremy Johnson, as I mentioned previously, at 26. They had to trade up to go get him. Great trade. Go get probably the 3rd best pass rusher in the draft. Well done. He's productive. The Jets need production. They have no pass rush right now. Brilliant. And then they get Breece Hall. Now, I like their the running back room actually in New York. I don't think it's bad. Hey, keep adding to it. Get weapons for Zach Wilson to see if he is real or not. They got Jeremy Rucker, good pass catching tight end, who I wanted the Bengals to get from Ohio State. I thought the Jets were fantastic, weren't too greedy. They kind of were able to stay in place for the most part, but when they saw an opportunity, they went for it. I thought the Jets had a great draft. Great draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second team that I think probably had the second best draft. And this was tough because I'll just mention a few other teams who I think did a great job. I won't go into detail. Detroit had a great draft. Seattle had a great draft, as I mentioned previously. I think Philly had a great draft, including that trade for A.J. Brown. I mean, it kind of counts as your draft pick. And then I thought the Giants actually had a decent draft as well as the Chiefs and Saints. I think those teams also had a great draft. Other teams did well. Those were the ones who stood out. Baltimore, though, is my second team, second best draft. You get Kyle Hamilton. I know he's a safety, but he's easily the best at the position.
6'4". He's ginormous for a safety.
You got him late.
Yeah.
He's the best safety at the position. He'll be wonderful for them in the AFC North. And I hate saying all of this because the Bengals have to face him. They got Linderbaum, the best center in the draft, after trading back to get him. I mean, and that was the pick that they got from trading Hollywood Brown. It made me furious. Great pick. They got David Ojabo. I know he's probably not going to play this year with the torn Achilles, but he's probably a top 15 pick, if not for the torn Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
He's easily the third defensive end off the board, even ahead of Jeremy Johnson. So I think it's a great, great pick. They address needs at pass rusher, at center. Did they get a corner? No, but they got Kyle Hamilton, and their corners should be getting healthier as we go. They did try to address that later on, but great work by Baltimore. They fleeced a lot of teams, and you would never – it's to be expected at this point. So well done to those teams. I thought they had great 3 days, but specifically the Jets. That was an easy call as the best draft by any team.
All right, who was not so good?
Yeah, so there were several teams that I just was lost in what the game plan is here. And so this is not an indictment on any of these players necessarily that they drafted, but it doesn't fit their team. There's no need for it. And so first is the Chicago Bears. What are you doing? If you're the Chicago Bears, what on earth are you doing? Like, I know you don't have any early round picks because you had to go up and get Justin Fields. And so I understand that. But if you watched any of the games last year, he had no one to throw to and he had no time to throw it.
Yep.
So what do you go out and do if you're Chicago? In free agency and the draft? This is just a draft grade, not free agency, but it's both here. In an indictment, we went defense. We literally get a corner and a safety with our first 2 picks. What are you doing? You got to find out if Justin Fields is your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Zach Wilson might not be the guy for the Jets, but dang it, they're going to find out.
Yeah.
Because they've supported him and given him the pieces to do it. Miami, Tua might not be the guy, but they've given him every weapon available to see if he is and to give him the opportunity. Chicago's going to get Justin Fields killed. No offensive lineman there.
Yeah.
No weapons. Your best wide receiver right now is Gerald Mooney. I don't understand what we're doing here. And listen, I think Kyler Gordon's a good, potentially really good player. I really like Jaquan Brisker. I thought if he wasn't a safety, he's probably a first-round talent.
Yeah.
But that's not what you needed. Yeah, you had secondary needs, but your defense is not the biggest need or issue. And Chicago can't seem to get over this cultural, we have to be mean and hitting hard, and it's all about the defense. And no, you have your potential franchise quarterback. Go get him a weapon. Yeah. Everybody else was. Even Detroit went and got Jared Goff a weapon. So what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Heck, even the Packers, who I thought had a poor draft, went up in the second round to get their guy in Christian Watson. At least they showed some effort. Chicago showed none.
Yeah.
What is it just going to be David Montgomery, Cole Kmet, and Daryl Mooney? That's going to instill some fear. Into the NFC North. All the while, Minnesota's loading up on their defense.
Oh, yeah.
The Packers are loading up on their defense. How's Chicago going to score points?
The answer is
they won't.
The way Chicago drafted, I will be, again, not trying to have expectations for my Lions, but I'll be a little disappointed, I think, if Detroit finishes behind Chicago this year. Because the way I look at it now, Detroit, there should be a little bit of expectation that they could at least finish in front of Chicago. I don't know if maybe I'm crazy, but
I don't think you are, though, Aaron.
Yeah.
And poor Justin Fields, he's just not getting a fair shot there. And I know I'm biased as an Ohio State fan,
You're right.
But
You're right.
most people would look at that situation and say, what are you doing to support him? Are you really even giving him a fighting chance? All your money's tied up into linebackers and safeties and, your center.
Yeah.
There's no balance on that team and payroll. But anyway, we talked about the Bears enough. Not that we talk about the Bears very often because they're bad.
Yeah.
The other team, and this is going to sound like heresy, but they've had some bad drafts in the last few years too, is the New England Patriots. It was a terrible draft. It was a terrible draft. Their first pick, and again, this is not an indictment on any of these players. I'm glad for them. This is an amazing night. But Cole Strange going from Chattanooga, their guard, even if you really wanted Cole Strange, you probably had him in the 3rd round. What are you doing drafting him in the 1st? At minimum, a 2nd for the value there. And listen, they have to replace their guard. There's nothing wrong with drafting the position. But you have to have some scouting going on between teams to understand where everybody else has him. Nobody had him projected in the 1st round. Not a single person. It was not a good pick. They take Bailey Zappi. Why are you taking a quarterback? You just took in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
In the 3rd round. Why are you taking a quarterback that early? It's one thing if you're taking a 5th round guy. Hey, we think he could be our backup. Cool. You have no weapons on offense still. And I know you took Tyquan Thornton. That's not the solution. You guys are so terrible at drafting wide receivers. You should have been moving up to go get one of these surefire wide receivers. You should have been one of those teams. You can't tell me nobody was calling on the phones. Detroit moved up from 32 to 12.
Yep.
You had the ability to move up and go get a wide receiver. So I just don't think New England did anything to improve as a team. I don't think they did anything to fix their offensive problems and lack of explosiveness. No solutions there. And all of their guys were massive reaches. Nobody was looking at drafting those quarterbacks in that spot. Even Bailey Zapp probably didn't have to get drafted that early. The way quarterbacks were sliding, even if you wanted them, you probably could have gotten them later. So part of the indictment with New England is not necessarily just who they drafted, where they drafted it was kind of insane. There was a lack of understanding what the NFL landscape is. And listen, Bill's a great coach. He needs to get out of the GM business. Somebody else needs to take over the draft and who's actually drafting. Him and his dog aren't doing a very good job right now. So they need to actually let the scouting department and the GM do their job.
Yeah, I agree. I love Bailey Zappi, loved him in college. And I was really sad when New England drafted him because I'm like, that makes zero sense for him.
Right.
I mean, that's so bizarre. To my knowledge, Brian Hoyer is still with New England as the backup. And I mean, he's not going to do a whole lot for you, but he's a solid backup that, I don't know. I didn't understand that at all either. That pick was like, man, I was hoping Bailey Zappi would go to a team that would, if all else failed, he'd at least get the reins and get to run with it. That's clearly not happening in New England. Even if Mac Jones has a sophomore slump, he's clearly the guy moving forward for the next few years. Even if he struggles, and there's not really a ton of indication that will be the case. So yeah, I agree.
So, a few other teams that I thought kind of struggled in the draft, and I lacked direction even with their picks. So again, some of these are not necessarily, oh man, I hate all of their picks. Green Bay. You go heavy on defense with your first two. I mean, you had 2 first-round picks, man. You had the ammunition to go up and get one. Go get Chris Olave. Yeah. He's apparently the guy that you really wanted. Why didn't you go get him? You had you had just as much ammunition as the Saints. Go get him. I didn't quite understand what Atlanta was doing. Drake London, I guess some people really just love the measurables. He's always hurt, though. Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round, I just don't quite understand that. He does kind of fit along the lines of Marcus Mariota, but that's not your future. And Desmond's a project. I would really like to see him go somewhere similar to Malik Willis in Tennessee, to where there's zero pressure, there's zero chance almost of him getting on the field, where Desmond could get on the field,
Yeah.
Marcus has been
Oh, yeah.
hurt a lot,
Oh, yeah.
and that's going to be a bad team. I wouldn't be surprised if week 5 or 6, all of a sudden you see Desmond Ritter, and he's not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Atlanta seemed to have an understanding before the draft that they were kind of drafting in a way for 2 years from now, because this was just going to be a really, really bad year, and they lacked that. And then I didn't like Houston. They reached. They
Yeah.
reached on
Yeah,
all
they
of
did.
their guys, took big risks. And when you're a bad team and bad roster, that's not the way to be drafted.
And a bad
You wanna
track record of taking risks to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to take productive players who you know will be productive and good locker room, cohesive players. They went big swings on all of their guys. Don't love that. And then I didn't love Arizona trading back, especially with today's news, with DeAndre Hopkins getting
Yeah.
suspended.
Yeah.
I understand their free agent moves a little bit more, but that's all of that seemed a little bit questionable to me as well, as also not addressing the loss of Chandler Jones in the draft either. So
Yeah.
those are some teams that I was a little confused on where they're going. Everybody else, for the most part, hey, I might not have loved every draft pick that you had or the position group that you really focused in on in the draft, but I think you improved significantly as a team anyway.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your summary on that. And I think, I think you basically at least mentioned just about every single team, which is impressive, because it's hard to do in a short amount of time. So well done. And again, appreciate your preparation. The draft show was an absolute blast. It was a good time getting to hang out with you and just talk about college football, which is what we're going to do now. Look at that segue. So in the midst of all this NFL draft discussion, there's been a couple very interesting stories in college football. Number one is a wide receiver that, quite frankly, would have been taken in the first round if he would have, in my opinion, if he would have chosen to enter the NFL draft, and that is Pittsburgh's Jordan Addison. He was winner of the Biletnikoff Award in 2021, which goes to the best college wide receiver. Now, he returned to Pittsburgh, even though his quarterback, Kenny Pickett, left for the draft. Obviously, he is staying in Pittsburgh, getting drafted by the Steelers at number 20. But he's staying with Pittsburgh. And let's just be very, very clear about this. Jordan Addison has not, well, let me put it this way. Jordan Addison seemed like he was very happy with Pittsburgh. His name was not in the transfer portal. He was committed there. And then USC came knocking. Despite him not being in the transfer portal, USC, with new head coach Lincoln Riley, came knocking on his door and said, hey, you should play for us. Essentially, USC is directly recruiting a player, and not just any player, perhaps the best wide receiver in college football, literally recruiting him, even though he is currently with another team. It's like Ohio State playing, Nebraska during the regular season. And at the end of the game, Ryan Day is shaking hands with the opposing team, and a couple of the players that he really likes is like, hey, great game, man. You played really hard out there. Would love to see you play for us next year. Like, what the heck is happening? Like, the transfer portal, and let's also be clear about something. And Jonny, you can make a comment if what I'm saying you disagree with, but I think I'm speaking for both of us, and Josh included. The transfer portal is overall a good thing because student athletes should be allowed to go where they want to go. There shouldn't be some ridiculous regulation placed on them, because there's no ridiculous regulation placed on other athletes in other areas. If you're a musician, you could transfer wherever you want and you can join that music program. Doesn't matter. I understand you're trying to find a competitive balance here, but the point is, I think we're both of the opinion that athletes should be able to play where they want. I think we're also both of the opinion that you as a head coach can't just recruit players already on another team. And at some point, something's going to have to be done about this. And we'll get to another story where something will have to be done about this. But here's the issue. The organization that should be correctly monitoring these things, the transfer portal, NIL, the NCAA, is the same organization that was pushing back so hard for fear of losing their power in college sports that now we're in a situation where there are no regulations because the NCAA has done absolutely nothing but drag their feet. So once again, I point to the NCAA as where the main source of blame goes. Blame should also go to Lincoln Riley because that's kind of a jerk move to just try to recruit another player's best player. Now, there's also not apparently any rules against it, so I guess you're Lincoln Riley. You're trying to, field the best team that you can. So in one sense, don't love that, but in the other sense, it's not really being punished. So why wouldn't you, I guess, try to field the best team in USC? So after all of that word vomit, Jonny, what are your thoughts on this situation?
And you said it very well in a few ways and Mark Emmert's looking at stepping down as the NCAA
That's pretty much
president.
Confirmed, right? Like 2023, he's gone. Yeah.
He's gone no matter what, or earlier if they find a replacement. It sounds like nobody wants the job because he's left it in disarray.
Yeah.
And athletic directors and presidents around the country deserve a lot of the blame here too, because he is elected in part and he is the spokesperson in part for them. So they have been failures in this as well. So as much as I dislike the NCAA, let's not pretend that it isn't run by its member institutions.
That's a good point.
They are at fault here just as much as Mark Emmert and the NCAA. They basically keep passing the buck and praying for Congress to fix it for them.
Yeah.
What business model does this? And the answer is they wouldn't deem themselves a business. They're a nonprofit
that makes billions of dollars.
Yep. That makes billions of dollars off of unpaid labor. Listen, I love NIL, that students can actually benefit from their name, image, and likeness. Look at a guy, people have mentioned it, Justin Ross from Clemson this year didn't get drafted. At one point after his freshman year, looked like a surefire first-round pick at wide receiver.
Yep.
Back injury, having to have surgery. He has missed out on millions of dollars with that injury.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big reasons why I'm in favor of an NIL. And these universities are earning a lot of money off of these kids. We're not even talking about schools paying them. We're talking about other businesses and entities. But it's not being monitored. This is the Wild West right now.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want. Jordan Addison is not in the transfer portal right now.
He still
That
is
is my beef here.
Yes.
Exactly. This is the beef here. If his name's in the transfer portal, this is fair game.
It's open. It's
and
free
I
agency,
truly don't
which is
have,
fine.
Yes, I don't have a problem with it at that
Agreed.
point.
Yep.
But he is completely being tampered with here.
Yes.
Pat Narduzzi contacted Lincoln Riley about his suspicion of illegal tampering. Jordan Addison is in LA right now with it. Listen, I want the NIL. I want players to be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. They have that right just as human beings.
Yes.
You know, a musician can do that. An artist can do that. Anyone who's gifted in certain areas can make money off of those gifts. To not allow that seems insane to me. And the length of time it took for us to get here is ridiculous. At the same time, I understand schools not directly paying these students.
Yeah.
And there needs to be some regulations on perhaps, I don't know if I'm still thinking through this as well, perhaps how much can be earned.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be regulations that unless you are in the transfer portal, you cannot be tampered with. You cannot have communication with other teams. And this is actually a rule in place right now, but it's not being enforced.
Yeah.
There's no teeth. Right now, Lincoln Riley and USC should be getting punished currently.
Yes.
And Jordan Addison should not be able to transfer to USC. That should be the punishment. He's allowed to transfer anywhere else. He shouldn't be allowed to go to USC.
Yep.
And USC should be getting suspended. Or let's make the punishment fit the crime. You lose one scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be that severe, but you lose the scholarship that you were going to use on Jordan Addison. It's gone.
Yep.
And you get fined as a university. It's that simple, really. It doesn't need to be this hard. Some of the rules are even in place. They're just not, there's no teeth to them. They're not being enforced.
Yeah.
And let's also not, Aaron, you have another story that you'll share here in a sec.
Yep.
This is not just USC. So don't take this as, oh, we're just hating on USC. Like, no. This is happening all over the country in a variety of sports. This has just been the most blatant, recent story of this happening right now. So with Jordan Addison's probably been the most high-profile player to do it after winning the Blitnikoff. It's just, it feels icky. It smells bad. It is bad.
Yes.
It's not good for the game. Where I don't think the transfer portal in itself is bad for the game, this is bad for the game. There's rumors that he's been offered basically $2 to $3 million, a house in South LA, full vehicle. Hey, he's not the only guy getting offered this, guys. Let's
Yes.
not be like ignorant to that.
Correct.
But it just smells bad.
Guys in USC have been offered
even
this
in the transfer portal
for decades. Now it's just legal is the only difference. So, yeah, you're right, Johnny. Along those same lines, we turn to basketball, where Miami's got a player named Isaiah Wong. Initially, he said that he was looking to enter the transfer portal because he was seeking a $2 million NIL deal. He has since said that he will stay with Miami, but again, it leads to questions about kind of the current NIL environment. And real quick, for those that I know we've been throwing that term around for a little while, name, image, and likeness. If we didn't already say those words, that's what NIL is. And you're right. The idea of it is, again, fantastic, that you are able to make money off of your own name, image, and likeness, and that's not coming from the university. In theory, Miami is not the one paying Isaiah Wong to play basketball there. And that should really never be the case because for a variety of different reasons, but I think the biggest thing is competitive advantage. And I know that's a little hypocritical to say because NIL, I would argue, does lead to an inherently unbalanced system where top programs like Alabama and Ohio State for football or, Clemson will have more interest and therefore have more money available to pay those players NIL. So it's a bit of a catch-22 there. The point is, we've completely lost the part where it's about name, image, and likeness, and it's about getting boosters and whatever organization the university can find that wants to pay players. So yes, it's not quote unquote coming from the university. It's not coming out of their payroll. But I'm sure there's people within the university that are then going to, insert company here. Or there's literally like trust funds being built by universities. Ohio State is one of them that are basically just grabbing money and throwing it at players for NIL. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly what the answers are. And this is something we talked about quite a bit last offseason in college football. Like myself, Jonny, and Josh, we talked about this on like 2 or 3 different episodes because it is a really complex issue. But again, I go back to the point of we could have been far more ahead and we could have had some actual decent and common, like thought out legislation in place if the NCAA wasn't being sued by Congress and wasn't being told that they're a monopoly, or governors weren't having to make rules on a state-by-state basis because the NCAA was dragging their feet and trying to protect all the billions of dollars they're raking in from the unpaid labor. Again, and Johnny, I'm glad you brought this up because it's the NCAA is made up of those member institutions. So again, that's a bit of a catch-22 where the same universities that are looking to give these players money, we're also trying to benefit from the unpaid labor. So it's a weird, complex situation, but we are so far behind where we should be as far as legislation because the main organizations that it makes sense for them to legislate this have been doing the exact opposite and trying to fight for their monopoly. And now here we are in kind of a mess. And it's going to be a few years before we really dig ourselves out. And everyone that's saying, oh yeah, I told you, NIL was such a bad deal. Johnny, you're right. It's like a moral thing that players should be able to earn money off their name, image, and likeness. Like put your fandom aside. Like I know, not to, as Josh would say, go like, boomer on everybody, but there tends to be from the older generation, this thought that everyone should just play for the love of the game. And that's true, certainly to an extent, but you're right. When you have situations like Justin Ross, who should be a millionaire based on his freshman year, and that's not going to happen probably because back injuries and all the mess that's there. I don't know. It's complicated. I'm upset. But does it ruin college sports? No. I think if you regulate it correctly, you have both the players earning the money that they deserve, and you've avoided the rampant just, hey, I want $2 million. Pay me now, please. There is a middle ground there. And unfortunately, we've had basically the point I'm trying to make is there's 2 extremes. And like most things in life, the middle ground is where we're really trying to be, and it's going to be a long process to kind of get there.
It just takes some leadership, leadership and some vision.
Yeah,
and that's something college sports has been severely lacking for a long time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So we'll see. We'll continue monitoring this. Again, this is not going to be certainly the last example of this. It is one of the more high-profile scenarios where you've got the top wide receiver in college football going to the bright lights of Los Angeles potentially. I do think it's ironic that USC will quite likely exit the season at 8-4, and all this will be about nothing, kind of. But it's an issue that's not going away. Also, Texas did not have a single player drafted in the NFL draft, and that's the third time since 2014 that hasn't happened. So Texas is really, really, really not back. So have fun with Alabama, Texas. Anyways. All right, I think that does wrap up that conversation, and I know that was a bit of a rant on both of our parts, but hopefully that kind of sets the stage and catches you up on a couple stories that maybe you weren't aware of, and so that's where we're at in college off season right now. All right, it's time to talk picks of the week. Last week we made a pact, Johnny. We said that if all of us got our individual NFL draft picks wrong, we would subtract a point from our 32-point three-way tie. Now, Josh is not here to offer his opinion, but I have a suggestion. Josh said that Malik Willis would be taken by Pittsburgh with the 20th pick. He was by far the closest of any of us. Johnny and I were well, I mean, he said that Pittsburgh would draft a quarterback at 20, and considering that was the only quarterback taken in the first round, that's pretty darn close. He just didn't get the right quarterback. So I'm here to propose that we both lose a point because we were not even close, and we'll uphold our deal that we made to subtract a point. And it's not like Josh gets a point because he wasn't right, but he also doesn't lose a point. So my suggestion is that the scoreboard read Josh 32, you and me 31. But I'm willing to debate that if you disagree.
I think we should all lose a point. That was pretty terrible.
That was pretty terrible. All right, that's fine. I don't care.
The awfulness means we all lose a point.
All right, 31 all then. It's settled. So the scoreboard is 31 all. And as we're recording this on a Monday evening, the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs have started. Yeah, it's starting a few weeks after the NBA playoffs, which is a little bit unusual, but it's an Olympic year in which the NHL was supposed to send players to the Olympics. That didn't happen because they had all kinds of issues with COVID. So we're starting the playoffs a little bit later than usual. But we're here, and we're going to give our picks for the Stanley Cup. I've got Colorado over the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Toronto will find a way. I'm a little bit concerned because their first round matchup against the Tampa Bay Lightning could be tricky right off the bat. And then they play the Florida Panthers, who had the most points in the regular season in the NHL this year. So I'm picking Toronto because I have this stubbornness about me that I just think Toronto's going to get there at some point. Austin Matthews had like a 60-goal season or something ridiculous this year. So I'm probably wrong, but I will go Colorado over Toronto. I do like the Avalanche. I believe I picked them last year. They failed me almost immediately, but we're trying again. So that's where I'm at. Josh, you're not Josh, but I'll tell you what Josh has. Josh has Toronto over his hometown Dallas Stars. So Josh is feeling Toronto as well. Johnny, what do you got?
I also have Colorado, but I have Florida, not Toronto, because Canadian teams choke. They sorry, guys.
And it's a fact. It's a fact.
They just do. And Florida had the most points this year. So I would guess I'm picking the top seeds on both sides, and that rarely happens in hockey. But we'll hedge our bets. Colorado and Florida. Let's go.
All right. That sounds good. So we'll check back in a couple months. So we probably should have picked something. Oh, wait. You know what I forgot to do? When's the Kentucky Derby? Because that's coming up soon. Hang on. Oh, yeah. That is this Saturday. All right. So we're going to... dang it.
We'll get Josh's pick later.
Yeah, so we'll pick the Kentucky Derby on our own time, and we'll report back to you with our findings next week after it's happened. It is this Saturday. I just realized that we forgot to pick it last year, and we almost forgot to pick it again this year. So we will pick it.
I'm so sorry, Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I know. I know we have a lot of listeners that are really big Kentucky Derby fans, so really apologize to you guys. But okay, well.
My apologies to all who celebrate.
Yes. All right. Well, that does take us to our final segment of the episode, outside of the New Orleans Breakers update, which is sad because we're no longer undefeated, but just a bump in the road, not a big deal. Okay, that's what we're following. And Johnny, I'll start. I'm excited for Thursday. I'm going to watch the Doctor Strange movie, and I feel like that's a good way to kick off what should be a pretty good month of just TV shows and movies, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I'm obviously pumped. And I need to catch up on Moon Knight, but from what I understand, that's been really, really good. And then later this month, we get the Obi-Wan Kenobi show on Disney Plus, and I'm pumped about that because I also like Star Wars, so I'm pretty cliche, stereotypical dude that likes Marvel and Star Wars, but I absolutely love it. Super excited. The fact that you're going to get Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it sounds like Hayden Christensen's going to be there playing Anakin. I mean, that's gonna be cool. I am pumped for that. And Disney Plus has done so well with all of those shows that I'm not going to say it's impossible for them to ruin it, because it could be, but I have pretty high faith that Obi-Wan's going to be pretty good. So I'm very pumped about that. So that's kind of what I'm following, is some fun movies and TV shows.
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to the Obi-Wan show a ton. I can't believe that's coming out soon. Why it's not coming out on May the 4th, I'm a little disappointed, but that's okay.
Missed
That's
opportunity.
okay.
That's okay.
Or even Revenge of the 5th, but it's all good. It's all good. What I'm following is insisting on talking about soccer. Sorry, everybody. It's another sports topic.
Yeah. Good.
Why I insist on talking about soccer is, and this is because we don't talk about the English Premier League very often, is several key races in the English Premier League. If you're not familiar with the English Premier League, it's the top division of soccer in England, of course. There are a few really cool races going on right now in the EPL. And so here's one. If you're not familiar, there's relegation in English Premier League soccer. I love relegation. It's my hottest take, is that I want it in all sports leagues. It should exist. What happens is the bottom 3 teams of the 20 that are in the top division of the EPL drop to the next division. The top 3 teams in the lower division get to move up. So everybody wins in this situation, except the teams who drop. So in this situation right now, though, 20th and 19th place, Norwich City and Watford, they're dropping. It's over. But that 3rd spot is a real tight race right now. We have at 18, we have Everton, 32 points, Leeds at 34, and Burnley at 34 as well. We're a real tight race right now, and Everton, who's 2 points back, has played one fewer game than those two. We're in a tight race right now. We only have 4 matches left in the season. So it's going to be a fun finish to see who gets to stay up, who doesn't. It's pretty much down to those 3 teams for that one spot. Of course, you're trying to avoid it in that case. Another race that's going on, and this is one of the most insane races. You rarely see it, and it's such a long season, 38 matches, that normally there's a clear number 1 team in the EPL. Manchester City and Liverpool have played the same number of games. Man City has 83 points. Liverpool has 82 with 4 games to go.
Wow.
We're talking 1 point difference. The goal differential, Liverpool leads by 1 goal extra. So their goal differential for Man City 63, Liverpool 64. This is as tight as it can be. I wish they were playing each other again somehow to end the season, and that was the last game going on. I do expect Man City with their schedule to probably finish on top, but we'll see. A tie could sink one of these teams this late in the season. They're both rolling. It's super fun. And then the very last race that I'll mention, if you're interested in the EPL, you always hear about the top 4, because the top 4 get to play the Champions League. It's like the Club World Cup, if you will, but they play it every year. So the top 4 teams get to go to it. So right now at 3, you have Chelsea at 66 points, Arsenal, my favorite team, at 63.
Nice.
I'm happy that they're back. And then Tottenham at 61. So again, 4 games to go. Real tight race between those 3. 2 of them will get in. 1 of them will be out. Beyond Tottenham at 5th, there's not much to speak of. Man City has dropped off. West Ham has dropped off. But those are bitter rivals, those 3 clubs. So it will also be a fantastic time watching those races. So that's way more about the English Premier League than any of you wanted to know about. But if you are interested and you love some soccer, wake up a little earlier on your Saturday or Sunday mornings. There's 8, 9 a.m. kicks, 10 a.m. kicks, some noon kicks. That's their prime time over there in England, of course. And so there's some great soccer on, usually on NBC or USA. So check out some brilliant soccer.
Yeah, you speaking of soccer, you were at a local MLS team this week.
I was. The Crew finally turned around their pointless streak of really struggling to score goals right now. They weren't struggling on Saturday night. 3 goals, 3-0 against DC United. I love the new stadium. Second time going. If you're in the area, of any MLS club team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great product. It's super fun, great atmosphere. They understand their growth right now, and most soccer-specific stadiums are 20-ish thousand seats, and that makes it a really tight-knit community and a great, great fun atmosphere. So go check out your local MLS teams. The game's really growing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I feel like a lot of new stadiums as well. Columbus is not
Yeah.
just not the only one. The Reds have not won since we last talked, and that's the only thing I'm going to say. That's it. So, in fact, I think we'll leave you on a sad. No, I'm not going to do that. I try not to leave you guys on a sad note. So, let's think. Happy thoughts. There's both NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs happening at the same time. There's your happy
Right
thought
now.
to end the stream right now. Yes, right now. So, and we didn't even touch on that, but we'll probably cover those series in more detail. Literally, some of them are just starting right now as we're getting underway. But top 4 seeds advanced from both the East and the West. So we'll probably cover that a little bit more next week. And I'll be traveling, so I think our recording is going to be a little jank. So I'll warn you in advance that my audio might sound a little funky next week. But we're planning on being here, so we'll have an episode for you guys next week. We really do appreciate you joining us. If you would, leave us a review, depending on what podcast platform you are listening on. That helps us out a bunch. It helps other people find the show, and we really do appreciate your support. Check us out on social media. We're hanging out there, reacting to a lot of these NBA, NHL games that are happening, so love to see you there. And yeah, we've got some videos coming out on YouTube as well. If you are listening on the audio and you want to see the video version of Jonny talking about his draft grades, that will be up later this week with some fun, background of, I don't know, the Chicago Bears fumbling or something like that. So make sure you check that out. We're on YouTube as well. And I think that wraps us up for this week. So Jonny, thanks for being here. Josh will be back with us next week. We're looking forward to being back with him, get the whole gang back together. We'll see you guys then. Have a good rest of your week. YouTube, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it. Make sure you, if you enjoyed this stream, then if you would give the stream a thumbs up, and if you want to hit subscribe, we've got a video coming out tomorrow of the weirdest soccer game to maybe ever have been played. So that's there's a little video coming up about that tomorrow. So we'll see you guys next week. Actually, we probably won't see you guys next week because I'll be traveling, so probably no stream. But we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.